Welcome to Envista Experts on Demand, your unbiased, informative source for supply chain best practices and industry updates. Today, we are speaking to Mike Kaspersky, Managing Partner, Design Solutions, on the topic of what to do when you're out of space in your distribution center. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
When is a distribution center technically out of space?
Technically, a distribution center is out of space when it hits about 85% of its occupancy. And that's not just in the storage area. That holds true for, say, receiving, shipping, and all process areas.
What happens when a distribution center goes beyond the 85% limit?
The biggest problem is congestion. Congestion causes extra work by moving product that I don't have room for. I've got to move this product into a location and take this other product out. I start to store stuff in aisles. I use staging space that's typically free space for new incoming material. Think of it as a three-car garage. Three-car garage, you can fit 3 cars, but if you put all 3 cars in there, you have no room for lawnmowers, snowblower, anything else, yard tools, and you have to move a car out to get them in. Same thing in a distribution center. If it's jam-packed full, you're typically moving stuff in and out, and you're taking up valuable time, obviously, and additional labor.
Why did distribution centers run out of space in the first place?
A couple of reasons. First reason is a really good reason. The really good reason is business is booming. Your products are hot, you're selling those products, your inventory is hot, people are coming and buying your stuff, so you need more products. The other reasons aren't so good sometimes. Purchasing overbuys something. When you plan your distribution center, you look to say, hey, I only need 2 months of inventory. Well, purchasing gets a great deal on some widget, and they say, hey, we got 6 months coming in. Where am I gonna put this? The other thing is obsolete or dead inventory. Inventory that's not moving, inventory that has been there more than several seasons. We like to do a quick test when I walk around a distribution center. I rub my finger over a product, and if it's full of dust, it's been sitting there a while. So it should be moved somewhere in a less congested spot or a less effective picking area, or it should just be, destroyed and moved out of the building.
Where should you look for more space?
The best place to do is to look up. Up is usually in a distribution center is where you can go. You've spread out the floor, you've planned everything on the floor, but up is sometimes, the area where you can find that space. Over shipping, over receiving, those are typically floor level processes. Even your rack, when you look at your racking, can you extend your racking all the way up to the ceiling?
What are some common ways to create more space in your distribution center?
First thing that people think about are extending their racks. Typically, new buildings have ESFR, which is a sprinkler system, fire suppression. So you can store within 18 inches of that area. So if you have not moved your rack or extended your rack up to that area, you can look at doing that. Now there's some pitfalls in that. Your rack uprights may not be sized properly for that. Your base plates on your rack may not be sized as well. So you have to engage a structural engineer and a PE to make sure that that's a viable option for you. One of the best ways also is to add a mezzanine. That's a very common item in a distribution center where you look over a space that's not fully utilized, again, maybe receiving area, maybe shipping area, and the mezzanine basically doubles that floor space. Now there's pitfalls with a mezzanine as well. You have to look and make sure your floor loading will be able to handle it. You're going to have columns and base plates that now drop down to the floor that could be in the way of the process that's below it. But again, it's always much better to add a mezzanine, if you can, than to expand the building. Would be to decrease your aisle width in your racking area. Typically, a wide aisle is anywhere from 10 to 12 feet. If you can reduce that down to 5, 6, 8 feet, you can save 15, 20% of the area, and in some cases much more. Again, the bad side of that is you have to look at your lift equipment. Is your lift equipment capable of following or working in those narrow aisles? You're looking at typically an order picker or maybe a turret truck. You also have the added expense of wire guidance now in a very narrow aisle situation. Another way would be to change your storage medium to a higher density type of equipment, which would be, let's say you go from single deep rack to double deep rack. Double deep rack requires a different truck as well to load the pallets, which would be a reach truck. Or you look at adding pushback rack or drive-in rack. Now, these options are great for adding storage, but the problem becomes FIFO, first in, first out. You are limited to your accessibility to those pallets.
What are some of the not so common ways to create more space in your distribution center?
Some of the other not so common places to create space would be to add half pallet locations. A lot of DCs are simply one size fits all. I size my pallet location for the biggest pallet that I could have, and I can put anything anywhere. If I put a large number of half pallet locations, because I do have some product that comes in at only a half pallet quantity, I can save that space. A lot of times we look at that as fluid volume as opposed to just what's in the actual area. Think of it as ice cubes in a glass. If I poured water in a glass, I get a lot more liquid. If I put ice cubes in a glass, I have a lot more space. If you condense your pallet, you can actually put more pallets, more product in that same area without a lot of what we call white space. Directed put away is a great way of creating or saving space in a warehouse as well. It's usually directed by your warehouse management system, where instead of the put away rules being I get to put the pallet wherever I want to put it and in whatever location I want, which might not optimize the space utilization, directed put away knows what locations are best suited for what pallets, and it tells you where to put that one, as opposed to letting the worker just put it in wherever the most convenient way is. The other way is you can get creative. Use space that you thought you never had before. There's space typically above receiving doors, above shipping doors, where you can put some pallet rack and put supplies, slow-moving materials, or staging for inbound or outbound product that hasn't been processed yet. Another trick that I like to use is if you have a pick module, and let's say you have conveyor down the center of the pick module, is from the bottom of one of the levels, hang a shelf above the conveyor. It's an easy way to gain locations for smaller items, slower moving items that don't need to be replenished as fast, because obviously they're not going to be able to be replenished by a fork truck. They're going to have to be replenished by hand or by the conveyor system. And last but not least is store product in trailers. Might sound crazy, but a lot of people will just bring on extra trailers, pay the demurrage charge, and allow you a temporary storage of product where I don't have to expand the building. Maybe I don't have to expand the building for just a season. I only need these trucks for several months, and it allows me to get past where I'm at in that time frame.
Is there a one-size-fits-all solution to solving space issues?
There really isn't one right answer. The answer is usually a combination of a lot of things. Free up space, add equipment, maybe add the trucks into the yard for a temporary. So there's usually more than one answer. There's not a home run. Sometimes there is, depending on what your capacity is and how much you're out of it and what your growth plans are. We still like to remember that 85% rule. You don't want to jam up your product into the 100% or even the 90%. And remember that garage. I still want to get my lawnmower out when I need to cut my grass.